Well, today we're going to look at a technique for retouching skin, and it's called frequency separation. And what's that all about? Well, it's an absolutely amazing retouching technique because it separates the texture in the image from the colour and the tone, and it lets you edit each one individually, which is brilliant. Okay, let's get started. Here we've got our base image, and the first thing I want to do is to create two duplicates. So I'm going to press Ctrl and J twice, and then I'm going to rename this bottom layer LF. That's going to be our low frequency, and I'm going to rename this top one HF. That's going to be our high frequency, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to click on the low frequency. Now what we're going to have here is all the colour detail on the low frequency layer and all the detail on the high frequency layer. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to turn off the visibility of this high frequency layer so we can see what's going on with this one. And what we're going to do, we're going to apply a blur to this layer. And what that's going to do is basically meld a lot of the inconsistencies in the skin tones together. So let's go and do that. So we'll go up to filter and we'll go to blur and we'll try Gaussian Blur. I'll just bring that in so you can see it. And what we need on here is an amount of blur that takes the detail away and tends to merge some of the inconsistencies in colour together, but it's not too much. So if I say that, well, that's too much. So what I'm looking at is something like maybe that, something around there, so we can still see what's going on, but it's not totally blurred out. And I'm going to click OK to that. Right, so now let's go on to the detail. Let's go on to the high frequency layer, and I'll switch that back on. And now what we're going to do, we're going to use apply image. So I'm going to go to image, and I'm going to go down to apply image. We want the source image to be the image that we're working on. The layer I need set to the low frequency layer. So here you can see that you've got the options of any layers. Well, I need the low frequency. And the blending I need set to subtract. Now these numbers here are the same all the time. So if they're not, just set them to this. Opacity needs to be 100, the scale 2 and the offset 128. Then if I click OK, you should get this kind of effect. And what we've done now is we've copied the detail from the low frequency and copied it onto this layer on the high frequency layer. So we've only got the detail on this layer and we've only got the colour on this layer. Now it looks a bit weird. Now if you've used the Photoshop, you might look at that and think, hey, that just looks a little bit like a high pass filter. And in fact it is. But instead of getting the detail from the radius value, which you type in, we're actually getting the detail for this high pass filter from the image itself by using apply image. Okay, now we can make this look better by blending this back in again. So I'm going to change this blend mode now to linear light. And that'll blend the details back in again. So really now we've got no difference. If I turn the original layer off, you can see it looks exactly the same, because between these two we've got one complete image. We've got all the colour detail on this layer and we've got all the detail on this layer, so it looks exactly the same. Okay, let's just put them into a folder. So I'm going to shift click to select both these layers, and then I'm going to select group, and then I'll rename that retouch. Oops, get rid of that. Okay, so now we've got these two in a group together, so we can switch them on and off at will. But at the moment it makes no difference because we've not actually done anything yet. Okay, let's make a start. So let's start with the low frequency. So we're going to start with the colour. So we're going to click on the low frequency layer. I'm going to go across and select the lasso tool. and I'm just going to lasso an area. It can be as big or as small as you like. I'll do it quite big for this exercise, but I need that to have a little bit of a soft edge. Now if I quickly go into quick mask mode by pressing the Q key, you'll see that it has, this selection, got a really hard edge on it, which I don't want. So I'm going to come out of that. I'm going to go up to the feather, and I'm going to put that right up to something like, ooh, yeah, nearly 40 pixels, something like that. And I'll draw a selection again. And just to show you the difference, if I press Q again, go into quick mask, you can see now that this edge is really soft. It's got a nice soft transition to it, which is what I want, because I want these things all to blend together. Okay, now I'm going to apply a blur to this area. And again, I'm looking for the same kind of thing. Let me just make that a little bit smaller. We're looking for the same kind of thing where we want the detail to be blurred out, but not too much so that you can't recognize it. Something like that. And if you're watching this area, what I'm doing is, if I turn that on and off, you'll see that it's evening out the tones a little bit. So if I move that up a little bit more, that does it even more. Maybe that's a bit too much. Drop it back a little bit. Yeah, I like that. Okay, so we'll click OK. And then I'm going to press Control and D to get rid of that. So now it's just a case of keeping going. So I'm just going round the image. I'm going to blur this again. So it's just doing exactly the same thing. I'll leave that set to the same and click OK. And I'll do it in big chunks just for speed, so you're not watching this video for hours. That again. I'll go around the bottom here. Just amuse yourselves while I finish this off. Have a cup of tea. Right, nearly done. But you can do this in small areas as well. If there's any areas that are of colour that you think could do with improving. And then we'll have a big one round the nose. Here, so obviously I'm avoiding places like the eyes, which I don't want to be blurry. Right, okay, now let's have a look at that. So now if I turn off the low frequency layer, you should see a difference. So that's basically where we started, and that's where we are now. So I'll turn off the group. So you can see that's where we started, that's where we are now. Much better skin tones, and it looks realistic. We've not got that plastic look to it. We've actually got the detail still there, but what we've done is we've altered the colours independently, so the colour of this is much more uniform, and I think it looks a lot better, And if you think you've just gone a little bit too far, then you can always just drop the opacity of that layer just a little bit. So there we've got before and after, before and after. I think that's a massive improvement. Right, okay, so we've evened out the colours and I think made it look a lot better. So what about the detail? Well, the detail is on the high frequency layer. So that's what we're going to do next. So I'll zoom in a little bit. And I'll spacebar drag just to get it round an area that we think might need a little bit of attention. So now we can change the detail of these pores and any inconsistencies without affecting the colour. I'm going to do that with the clone stamp tool. So I'm going to select that. I'm going to make sure that just the current layer is selected up here in sample, because you don't want to be sampling from any of the other layers. get my brush size about right with the square bracket key, and I'm going to sample, and I'm going to click and drag just to get rid of it. And oh, we've got something up here, so I'll just take a little sample above it and come across. You can see how easy this is. Get rid of that one, another one there, because now we're not affecting the colour at all. That's on the underlying layer, so we're not causing ourselves any further problems with colour. Let's have a look. Are we okay with that? Oh, there's a little bit there, so I'll just get rid of that. Okay, there we go. We'll just have a quick look at the before and after. I'll close this up, and then so that's where we started, and that's where we've got to. And I think that looks much better, because we've managed to separate and edit independently the detail, the colour. There we are. Frequency separation. Have a go at it. I think it rocks.